All right, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome back to the Education Chat series today. So I hope that you have had a well-rested morning. We had in Malaysia, we actually had our holiday on Wednesday, right? So for those of you joining in over here, hello to you. Thank you for joining into the Education Chat series. So if you are in right now, please do comment down below from which country you are currently from. We are always very happy that people across the world are joining into this platform, and more of you are starting to get engaged in the education platform, which we are very happy to meet all of you over here. So for today's session, right, we will actually be speaking with one of the speakers from the Education Summit 2020 that was happening last month, where we actually spoke a lot about education from the Acton Academy in Kuala Lumpur, right? Because a lot of teachers has been talking to me about education and how their kids, right, are merely not very interested or invested in their very own education. So they were asking us always the question is about okay, how can I get our kids to take more ownership on their own learning, right? How can we not force them every day to do their homework, to learn A, B, and C, right? And to get them to be self-motivated in a way in learning. And most importantly, are we able to allow them to take on their own journey, right, in discovering new things by themselves? Because at the end of the day, when they go out of the school, right, when they approach the working life, when they meet the real world scenario, it's all about self-learning, right? No one is going to be there. You are not going to be there as an educator or parent. You're not going to be staying there and asking them to learn A, B, and C, right? So end of the day, it's all about allowing them to discover their own path and journey as well, right? So, right. So for those of you who joining in, thank you so much. I'm seeing over here Jesse, good morning, listening from Philippines. And Ian, good morning, Ian. Ian Brunio Orenio, always a pleasure to have you on board. And Viera Bira Kumbang, good morning to you. Good morning, everyone. Hope you are ready for the session for today. So for the session today, I'm just going to bring up our guest speaker for today. His name is Jia Hong Tan. He's basically the co-founder of Acton Academy Kuala Lumpur. So Acton Academy Kuala Lumpur is they have a very interesting education approach, right? So those of you who have actually gone through the Education Summit 2020, you may actually know what I'm saying over here in terms of their approach in learning, right? So I guess without further ado, I would like to invite Mr. Jia Hong Tan up on the screen to join us for our session for today. Good morning.
Hi, Jay.
Good morning, Jia
Good
Hong.
morning. Good morning.
Right.
How are
So,
you?
Jia Hong, how's everything going on over here? I guess we have a lot of holidays this week. So, how's it been going on?
That's good. Good. I mean, my family is upstairs playing we have a rooftop play area, and family is upstairs. So I was playing with my children just before this. After this, I'm gonna go back playing with them. So this is a short break spending with the rest of you, in between playing with children. So my children are 2 to 4 years old. So
All right.
can't be any better. Yeah.
Right, and once again, Jia Hong, thank you so much for coming on board for another sharing session. So hopefully, I guess when we were speaking, a lot of teachers, right, during the Education Summit, a lot of them actually have follow-up questions that hopefully we are able to address as well during this Education Summit. And also, I guess today is really to have a chat with you, right, on probably on education, on the entire education approach as well. So for those of you who actually have any questions for Jia Hong, please do comment down at the comment below. So hopefully we can have a conversation together with Jia Hong and yourself as well. Right. So Jia Hong, let's start off with you yourself as well, right? So how do you actually get into education and how did your education journey actually started off? Probably you can share a little bit more of your very own hero's journey.
Well, I grew up in PJ, and then did physics and finance. That was the sort of the usual background. You can say a typical quantitative kind of path. Then 7 years back, I spent 2 years traveling around the world, and then saw that children are quite capable, and they're in their own ways, and figuring out things. There are children that met in Africa who like a 10-year-old bus conductor who could do math very, very quickly, but only with paper money. So literally, he's like the paper money is the abacus, and there are also other examples where like a group of children can figure out how to create a band on their own using YouTube. So there's always this kind of like inspiration behind, like what if children are more capable than we imagine. And 6 years back, sort of this idea pop up that what if we have a classroom which is not teacher teaching, but just students teaching each other using at that time computer software which are game based. So tested on that, then eventually found out about Activ Academy, and so each time I have a few friends who are also on board to do these experiments of children learning without teachers. The journey becomes that each time that we do it, the children are inspiring us that this is possible, and then sort of through Google found out about Acton Academy, applied to them to start a campus in Malaysia, and that's how the journey started. So now we're serving just the families who believe in us, and also our own children too. So yeah.
Yeah, and Jia Hong, just by the way, for your own education journey, right? How was education like for you when you were in your primary, secondary school? Was it just a typical old-fashioned traditional school, or did you take a different route?
Yes and no. So, I mean, I went to the Chinese school, Yok Chai, just nearby here, and then went to Catholic high school. Both are government schools. I guess the difference is that when I was younger, I was quite interested with like encyclopedias and stuff. So that was kind of like homeschooling. My mom, thankfully she have a home with a lot of books. So like I was reading a lot. That's kind of like a self-learning at that time. And then later in high school, most of the time I was not in class. I was in Boy Scouts. At that time, I was thankful that Scouts of Canada, they have this thing called the dump. Literally, they just dump all the old Baden-Powell and all the old classic Scout books online. So I literally every night I was devouring things online, and that helped me eventually pursue the King Scout, and some other considered challenging stuff in Scouts. That was another phase of self-learning that I felt very connected when I found out about Acton Academy, because there's so many similarities in terms of badges, in terms of owning the learning journey yourself, in terms of documenting your learning, having reflection. So there are many similarities with Boy Scouts. So that was kind of like and of course, as you said, Jay, that when we go into working, it's all self-learning. So that really came into full force. I work as a derivatives trader in London. So that was quite intense. And I would say those background from high school, learning on my own, that really helped in my career, in the early years of my career. Yeah.
And during your time as I guess you were homeschooled in Malaysia from primary to secondary school?
No, I was kind of in kindergarten. Like I would say that that's kind of a homeschool with going to the Peter and Jane for like just 9 to 12 p.m. But after that at home, like that, I would just play and read books and with a bunch of friends. So because my mom was taking care like 8, 9 other kids at the same time, so we would just play and then read and stuff like that. So in the early years of primary, I was doing a bit of more of that because there was not as much homework. then of course, when the exam drill comes in, then this spark of learning start to go away, and it came back during the Boy Scouts days when I was 16, 15 or 16.
Right. And how did you actually ended up in London as a derivatives trader over at London?
So I did a physics degree in Imperial London. I mean, a lot of it was influenced by reading up Richard Feynman. This is a famous physicist from the US, and I have a friend who's now a researcher in Tokyo. He's my high school senior. He was quite obsessed with physics, so we were good friends, and I sort of enjoyed that field too. So it was a combination of like books, friends, personal interests, and pursue a degree in that. Then naturally, in London, everybody talks about finance, and this is 2006, before the financial crisis. So it was a hot thing to go in. So naturally, I got sucked into that, vampire world of finance. So, having said that, I did really enjoy my time in that field. So yeah, that's kind of
Right. And then how did the segue actually take form when you start to research into going into education? So how did you actually get started in education?
it was really accident in some ways, because this whole idea of that, oh, what if a classroom with no teachers could happen. So when that idea came out, I mean, I was in Singapore working with Credit Suisse. This is after traveling the world and then going back to finance. So I wasn't that fed up with finance. I actually liked some of things then. So what happened is that we did the first experiment with Arus Academy. But at that time, it was not Arus Academy yet. It was just David, Alina. They were they were teaching in uh, Bukit Pentajam, and they had students. So we just used their students and their space initially to run experiments, and those experiments were like, wow, this is worth pursuing further, lah. So did a few more experiments, and then it's like, okay, I should leave my job to try this out, lah. So that leaving the job lead to doing similar experiment in public schools, and that those lead to eventually Acton Academy. So what I'm trying to say is that you find something interesting, spend a weekend doing it, and that leads you to spend 2 more weekends, and then more weekends, and then eventually that convinces that that's the calling. So that's all.
Right. So in other words, you left your job from finance, and then you sort of like go into the education sector because it really interests you in a way. In a way, from education, what's the thing that really pulls you in and really gets you interested about education?
I mean, when you can see children being able to figure things out themselves because the environment allows them to do so, lah. And in a way where you can step back. So what I'm trying to say is that it's not. It's like the best day is where the game is set up and I'm behind the scenes, and the whole they're taking charge themselves. So those are the best days, and that's when like the magic of self-learning uh, and ownership happens. And then of course right now it's like the 15, 16-year-old, they are they have the maturity to research and design their own path in the future, and in a way where it's like it's be preparing themselves for the real world, and they are having we are having those conversations where um, they are asking the tough questions. I mean, those are quite
Right.
Those people are delighted. It's a delight to serve them.
Right. And
Yeah.
yeah, and I guess moving forward from there,
Yeah.
how did you actually get connected with Acton Academy, and how was the education approach like when you actually got connected with Acton Academy?
So, I mean, whatever I found was just online, and then they have this page where you can apply and start an Active Academy. So we just submit it in, and then then the next thing we know is got accepted. So flew to Austin, and then we saw what they were doing there. And the reality is that they are also adapting to the eventual possibilities, because as of the past 5-6 years that what Acton is, it's about having projects that there's a core skills projects, but where the founders and the where we see the future of Acton is that it's a game where, at least for children under 10 or 12 years old, it's a place where they come here to play a game all the time. Right. So it's like there's only one. It's like the only consequence is not discipline. The only consequence is that you're not invited to the game.
Right.
And the idea, yeah. So that is like it has keep moving and moving, and we believe that that's the best model we can design. But that model is still being tested.
Right. So for those watching over here that might not be so familiar with Acton Academy, would you be able to give some summary of what Acton Academy is all about?
So imagine Acton Academy is a combination of old and new. The old being apprenticeships, one-room schoolhouse, meaning you have a class of like mixed age groups, and the new is that you have the software that game-based adaptive software, which will track, which will follow where the children are learning, and then there's project-based learning, and and the most important thing that connect all this together is that they have it's a place where they want to be there because it's a place where they own it. So it is a place where children own their learning. So in summary, it's like that. It's hard to, I guess it's that in my own words, it's hard to paint that picture of it, because the first thing you would say that, oh, this is a school. There's children, they come in. So maybe the flip side of it is like, okay, imagine it's a co-working space for adults, and they have their own passion projects and their own joint activities and so on. But imagine all these adults are actually just children. So co-working space, but with some purposeful mission around it. So I would say that's the shift.
Right. And typically, if we were to drive our way all the way into the doorstep of Acton Academy, when we walk into the main door, right, would you be able to describe what we will actually see on the day-to-day basis on what Acton Academy is like?
So the first thing is that you'll see that there's a lot of freedom. The children have a lot of freedom. Having said that, within the freedom, there are guardrails, that there are like there's responsibility that comes with it. The adult role is like in the more of like taking a step back, allow the children to own the decision, allow mistakes to happen. There's just in terms of learning design or so-called curriculum, there's the basic reading, writing, and math done for the older levels is done on computers. For the younger ones, is Montessori materials, and the rest is projects or real life challenges where it's engaging. So how would I put it? So I would say, for the youngest one, it looks like they're playing all the time. Just that when they're playing, they are doing things which are challenging. For the older ones, it looks like just an adult co-working space. Right. Where they are kind of responsible, they know their goals, and they have a long-term plan.
Okay.
So
okay.
That's how I would describe it.
So I guess let me try to paint sort of like a picture on how is it like as a student in Acton. So if let's say treat me as a student, right? So first day I walk into Acton Academy, so I will meet Jia Hong as the co-founder, and what will actually take place for the next probably 1 to 2 weeks time.
Just for clarity, how old are you?
I'm probably 7 years old and very curious about the world, very hyperactive, wants to play around. So how would the conversation take place like for the next 1 to 2 weeks together with Jia Hong and Acton? Okay,
so I would say, you are in charge here. You're the principal. I'm not the principal. You're the principal. Having said that, this place might appear new. We have a buddy with you. As if we have a buddy, the buddy will sort of have some idea of what he will do to sort of like help you ease in. If you want to have a goal today, maybe the only goal to do is to make a friend, make one friend, and see whether you want to come back tomorrow because it's your choice. So of course, there's some depending whether this is needed. If the child is more agreeable, then that's I will stop there. If the child is kind of like more playful, I would say that okay, do note that um, uh, at least do not try to harm anyone. I mean, like otherwise you have a lot of freedom. So
All right.
otherwise
Okay.
that's just pretty much it.
All right. And then probably the next question I would ask is that, teacher, so what do I do here? So I see that it's a very beautiful place. So what do I do next? Yeah.
Well, I'll say what here's when I do not answer question as much as possible. Or the actually the motive is not as much as possible is do not answer question full stop unless
Right.
unless like health and safety where it's a different situation. So in this case, I would say I'll offer a choice for 7-year-old. I'll offer a choice like okay, would you like to walk around on your own to have a feel of the place, or would you like to uh, be connected with the buddy to show you around? So in those cases, that question, I do not know the answer, but you have a choice to make the decision on what to do next.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah.
Okay. And sort of like, would you be able to describe to us the culture over in Acton Academy? I know that you're just mentioning to us that, okay, rule number one for the guides, right? Do you call your teachers guide over there
Yeah,
in
right.
Acton Academy? Right. And so rule number one, do not answer their question, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So you have to ask them questions instead for the
Yeah,
kid,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah. So, and would you be able to share with us some of the other cultures that guides over in Acton Academy hold very strongly to?
There are a few beliefs. I mean, like the first one is that you have to trust the children, trust the eagles. Uh, Second is trusting the process. So meaning trusting the process is like you have question. I give those two choices, right? Trusting the process means that I trust that you will choose one choice and go through it. And if there's frustration, offer other choices, right? So trust rather than giving the answer away. So um, that would be trusting the process. So those two would be the beginning. And of course, there is we what we say and what we do is very much based on the impressions that we have, right? Like if I were to see that yes, you know, let's say the day before for some reason, you were very delightful because and there's another child who is miserable or whatever, I might have judgment with the next time I see you. So the idea is to have see each child with fresh eyes. I mean, see each person with fresh eyes, and have that beginner's mindset. Now. That makes sense. So that you can engage each person with that curiosity and openness, which is actually quite a hard thing to do, but that's
Right.
one of the things to practice. You can deliberately practice that.
Right. And okay, so say for the children, right? What's the end goal for a guide, right? When you are working together with the children, with a child in Acton Academy, what is sort of like the end goal that you are hoping to strive for in the entire journey together with the kids?
So with the child, our mission is find a calling and change the world, right? So calling means that it means like what calls for you. So there are a few ways to go around that. It's like are there things that you feel that you have injustices about? Like for some people might be that the environment needs to be so on and so forth. The sea needs to be uh, the sea. I want to see sea creatures or like I want to save the uh, elephants or whatever. That's one aspect. There's also the idea of flow, meaning that when you do something, you have this right energy that goes with it. That's really engage you. So it's to find those, and then of course there's like deeper talents that you have. So what I'm trying to say here is that our mission is find a calling. So for the child, to serve the child is to equip them, help them with to have this space and environment to find a calling. So that's to the child. Then there's the other purpose and goal is to the the learning community, which is to so one the model is that we are a learner-driven community. So what it means is that a studio is best functioning when a guide is not there and the whole thing is running by itself. That's when that's the ideal. Meaning we basically work ourselves out of our job lah. So that's the role of the guide is those two. I mean, with the angle in mind, those two things are: one is the calling, two is a learner-driven community where you can fully step back.
Okay, and let's talk more about the learners-driven community, right? So, would you be able to describe to us, in your definition of what's a true learners-driven community? How would it actually look like if a best-case scenario were to happen in a learners-driven community?
The DAO is not there; everything runs. Learning happens, and they are.
Right, and for the kid, I guess for traditional schools, right, a learners-driven community is sort of like the if I could say an opposite of what is currently happening in our school, whereby a teacher's it's usually the person that drives the learning process, right? And from Acton Academy, what's the process like in allowing the students to be able to spearhead their own learning? So how did you get the child to get started with their own learning journey in that way?
So first thing to address is that I believe that there are pockets of gems in the public school where there's self-driven learning happening, usually in very high-performing clubs and societies which have long traditions of excellence. So meaning like, so for example, my high school years, there is the band, the school band. The scouts are kind of like that too. There are a few organizations, like small clubs and societies where the club members are just so into it that they are very committed and they are doing everything on their own. So that is, I would say, a learner-driven community that exists in public school. You don't see that often, but you do see them, So I just want to make it clear that you actually see some specks of gems in public school. So that I want to say that first. Your question is, how do we create that learner-driven community,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, probably sort of what are the systems in place, or how does the guide, right, actually allows that to happen in the academy?
Yeah. So this one I would like to point to the let me see the slide that I've shared during the talk
Okay.
earlier. Let me just look at it quickly. Um, so there's the initial step one is like trust the learners. Step two, make it fun, and three, it's contracts.
Right.
So the first two parts is really just you want to create a place where people will come here. So that's regardless of the beats, the starting point is that it's a place where people want to be here. So I believe this is in the summary is in page 43. If you would like to bring that up, page 43.
Yeah.
The slide right before.
Yeah. Is this the one?
This works too, because it's just a repeat, but with the hero's journey. So the first, number one, trust the learners. Number two, make it fun. It's basically to make the place where people want to belong there, right? It's like, if you want to belong there, then a community only works if the community members want to belong there, right? whatever thing you try to do, if they don't want to belong there, nothing works. So number one and number two is to make them want to belong there. That's the first thing that needs to happen. Then the third thing, which is number three, create contracts, is setting expectation of the of individual community members of their role and allow it to run on its own. So those are the three things that one, trust learners, make it fun, create contracts, coming on its own. So it can be even, let's say a bunch of children want to play football together and they meet every, let's say Saturday, Thursday and Saturday, and they play by the rules, and they play fairly because there's some understanding of it. Literally, what it is that you have the ingredients of 1, 2, 3 together, because football is fun. There's a contract because they come in on Thursday and Saturday. They come in consistently. They're committed to it. Trust the learners is, well, there's no need. It exists because it's like the parents, whoever that's part of it. It allows the children to go to the padang to play, right? So of course, then the question becomes a question of excellence, right? So this a group of children playing football, do they go for competition? Do they sign up for competition where they start having some goal, like I want to win. I have a friendly match with somebody, I want to win. So they have common goals, so to bring them together. Then 5 is that, of course, if you're just doing a friendly match, that's not real world yet. But if you go to a tournament, then it goes to real world. And then that whole process just repeat again. Of course, you need some success, some failure, some success, and then that journey of that hero's journey go again and again. And of course, the challenge is, how do you do it for academics, right? Because you could imagine football to be in that way, things which are fun, or maybe like a lot of sports can be done that way, but academics might be different. So the gamification of academics need to happen to make it work. And of course, the other one is that we need to remove unnecessary obstacles, right? Like if we're gonna do, let's say, things that doesn't make sense for most people to learn, like I don't know if anybody feel that it makes sense to learn Punitika moral. I mean, if there is, then please correct me. So, but in general, like as far as I can tell, Punitika moral will be hard to implement this, right? Learning, let's say, some things that where it's not relevant, it's hard to imagine this. So things which cannot connect to real world will be hard to implement this. But otherwise, if you make a place where children want to belong, if there's invested interest, the learner-driven community can emerge out of it. I mean, it's a long-winded answer. I hope I summarize, say it well enough. Yeah.
Right. I guess if I may be able to bring out some of my experience during my probably university days, right? So they teach about Punitika moral. Where you were talking about that Punitika moral. So what they did was that, there's a theory part whereby everyone have to memorize all of the concepts, definitions, so that you can sit for an exam, right? So that's part number 1, which is always the one that really don't make sense to me from that part. But however, there's a second part whereby they actually mentioned that you actually have to come up with a community service, right? An activity that you have to create together with your team, right? In showing us that you understand a particular trait of the moral. So, for example, if they actually ask us that, okay, we took the topic of engaging with a community, right? So to respect others' culture and things like that. And this is where everything gets exciting, right? The team comes together and we sit down and we say that, hey, why don't we go to the Orang Asli place, right? And let's engage with them, find out more about their culture. So there's like the entire elaborate long journey of discussing, hey, we can make this fun. We can contribute this games and play together with their kids, have fun with them, and from there. And that sort of like turns the entire wheel, and it keeps the entire journey of it much more interesting in that sense, right?
So that's the part about connecting to real world, right? So the theory doesn't, the reason I'm relearning this is to score, and what's the point of that score is because somebody set that test and I need to do it. If that's not connecting to real world, so your second, this what you describe is that's connecting to real world.
Right, right. And I guess a lot of the teachers has been discussing with us, which is that the making it fun part, right? So would you be able to share with us more on how do you make possibly a concrete example on what subjects and how did you implement it in a way to make it fun for the kids?
I mean, maybe you suggest a subject and then see how.
Okay, so let's say for example, so for those of you watching, if you're figuring out any subject that you feel boring, so maybe you can bring it up over here and see how we can make it fun. For lack of a better word, let's take history, right? Sejarah, for example, you have to memorize a lot of details,
Yeah,
data. Yeah. So how do we as an educator, in your perspective, make it fun and more relevant for the kids?
yeah. So I'll just share how we do history here. So history for us is about being in that person's shoes during that time and making decisions, right? So if it's like, um,
Yeah, let's talk about a chapter from first chapter from Sejarah or history, which is the founding of Malacca,
okay,
Parameswara at the side
okay,
of the river,
okay.
discovering.
So
Yeah,
okay, let's say Parameswara is beside a river. He will have few allies, right? He will have his Orang Laut, Orang Laut, which is quite capable. You have the because I believe that he came from Temasek, Singapore, right? So you
yeah,
have the nobility family members. So if you are Parameswara at that time, to set up Malacca, who will be your closest, who would you seek advice or who will you stay close to you in building the place? I don't know the
right,
answer. I mean, that they have to like, imagine your Parameswara, who would you, or it can be that they are trading port, right? Um, would you engage with China or would you make relationships with India?
right.
I,
Okay,
I mean, put yourself in that situation. What would you do? Of course, you want to make it fun um, in the sense that, okay, there's another party which is China, another party which is India, and then they have to look into it. It's like, okay, India at that time, which empire is it? Well, I'm not sure it's Chola. I think it's somebody else. China at that
right,
time is Ming Dynasty or beginning of Qing Dynasty, and
right,
then okay, and then they role play together, and then they have to trade, and then see whether how that conversation emerged. So it comes to a decision of um, what are you going to do that, right, rather than facts, because that's no right answer, and then you argue your way, then that's kind of
right.
like
Yeah,
um,
and in a way, so what you were mentioning just now is that you do sort of like a role play and to ask them questions in the way. Yeah,
Yeah, and I mean, like for teenagers, you can even have this question like, you are the at that time let's say you are with the Zheng He coming down to Malacca, would you marry a local or would you go back China and have a wife? I
right,
mean, it sounds like a silly question, but actually it's like, if you are into relationships, you will think, oh, do I find a local who I cannot
right.
communicate the language in, or do I
Mhm.
have a relationship back home? I mean, it's a valid question, right? I
Right,
mean, what?
right, right. And
Yeah.
and in your school, right? Knowing that children are very independent in their thinking in a way, do they actually ask you that, hey, teacher Jia Hong, why do we actually have to study history? What was the purpose of this? And do they actually ask this kind of questions to
Well,
really find meaning?
they don't know because we do state it explicitly that for us it's not called history, it's called civilization. Is to uh, is to learn how to make better decisions by looking at the decisions that have been made in the past, right? So it's just pretty much using history as a way to exercise decision making. So, and of course, decision makings involve understanding the cultural landscape of the world, right? Uh, and like different forces in play. Like the fact that, for example, the fact that what we see in Hong Kong with this China, or even like what we see in US, they are repeating, there's repeating history throughout time. So one is to just be influenced. The other one is to have an independent mind. and evaluate what it is and make your judgment. And ultimately, as a as a as a free person, right? I mean, like the idea of this free person that is that we can eventually. I mean, anybody, if they want to, they can move to another country, change their citizenship, and vote with their feet, right? So in the end, it's like it comes down to the decision of your own life, and you know, so that's what. So for us, that's history.
Yeah, and so-called the way that you approach history learning, right? Is there a way to allow kids to have their own self-paced learning in subjects like this? Would you be able to describe, or in a better way, how would you determine what kind of subject is being taught in Acton Academy, and what kind of subject will the students actually learn?
So civilization is an example of a synchronized activity because it involves discussion with peers, right? And discussion with peers does require that some level of maturity, similar maturity for that topic, right? So in that case, what it is that it's within it's not within cross studio, it's within the same studio where they are, at least the level is, they can exchange with each other. So the way it's done is that there's like 30 minutes of pre-research. This is middle school, by the way, pre-research, and then there is a discussion, which is they have the list of questions that they have to go through and debate based on the research that they have. For the elementary, what it is we use this Susan Boyce, I can't remember her name exactly. Story of the world is basically a story about different phases of the world, and then there's a discussion of what would you do in being in that person. So that's pretty much it. Um, if you were to ask me how you can do it even better as a family, is that as one learns the history, you have cultural experiences in your daily life. That would be even better. So meaning like you are learning about the Romans, have a taste of Roman type kind of food. How is it like? If you India, have a taste of what those cultural aspects of it, be it food, and make it an immersive experience. But that's you got to do that more as a family than in a classroom. Yeah.
Okay, and I see that from your website is that there's so-called like a latest technology in self-paced learning, right? Would you be able to elaborate more about that, the technology that is being used?
Well, this actually has been around for a long time. At least Khan Academy has been around for like 8, 9, 10 years. And there are new software that comes about. So, but the principles are kind of the same. So if you can go to slide, the slide I've shared is in slide 55. So let's go to that, slide 55. So all this software, they are introducing these four things, kind of introduce these four things. So the first one is that it is adaptive, meaning that it will move to where you are based on the challenges. So it's like, imagine you play a game, if you are very good in level 1, you will jump to level 5. And then if you are still doing very well, you will jump, but after 20, 30 minutes of playing, you will be at the level where you feel challenged. So that's adaptive. Gamified is that it feels like a game that engages you rather than like it's a lecture or whatever. So so that it keeps the learning hook and in a way where it's motivating. It's like, oh, you score the points. Let's go on, see whether you can do this next. So that's gamified. The third one is self-paced because the whole thing is based on software which moves at your own pace, right? So that means that you can do at your own time and so on. And the last one is more for analysis of learning, is data rich. So to summarize, it's like adaptive, gamified, self-paced, and data rich. So there are two images there. The one is a Khan Academy, which you can see what you see here is that it's on the top. It says arithmetic, and then down there you can see a sort of a dashboard of the 85% mastery, and you can show that which particular skills that's been mastered and not mastered. So that's the idea of data reach. And then self-paced, you can see on the right-hand side, it's like mastery challenge. You can start, so you can start, you know, do it at your own time. So in some ways, it's like if you are not sure about something, you can repeat again and again. So that's self-paced.
Right.
And then it's adaptive in the sense that actually this whole thing that goes behind is that it will adapt to your level very quickly. So Khan is not that gamified. So I have another example here. You see on the bottom right, there's this Prodigy. It's also a math software which involves you as a person battling different not you as a person, you as an avatar or hero battling different monsters and stuff. And as you battle them, you have to solve math problems. So that's kind of a gamified approach. But what I'm trying to say is that there are many software out there, and there are new software that just comes about because you know there's a big market out there.
Right.
But all of them have these 4 elements where it allows learning to be personalized to the person.
Right.
In a way, in a quite an engaging way, and very cheap too, right? Because you don't need the individual tutor and so on.
Right.
So
And
I'm not sure I
the
answered
two,
that question. But yeah.
so the two main softwares that guides actually use over in Activ Academy will be Khan Academy and Prodigy.
No,
Those are the two main.
those are just 2 examples.
I see. All right.
Yeah.
And so in a way, I see that from some of the sharing sessions that in Acton Academy, the students for those skill, for example, like mathematics, arithmetic, language, and things like that, it's oftenly you actually use softwares like Khan Academy in a way for them to learn all of these skills.
Yes, and what we want to do is that instead of us, right now we are choosing the software which I believe is it's not the most effective way. Where we are going towards is that every 6 months or so, the students they will have a 1 or 2 day session where they can try new software, and then they test and give feedback on the software suite that we have. Because end of the day, it's like it might look fun to me, but it's like only a child knows whether
Right.
it's fun for them, right? So that's where we want to go to, and let their feedback guide us rather than us trying to make decisions for them.
I see. So in a way, the children will test out the software that will be used on their learning progress, and then they will propose or share to you as a guide.
That's where
All
we
right.
want to. I mean, we are not we have not been doing that so far. We do get feedback, but not in a way where it's like every 6 months we'll do this test, and these are the 5 things we're gonna test, or then maybe ask them to Google and
Right.
see whatever
And,
is in the App Store and so
and
on.
from the students, right, based on past examples, right, what are the top softwares that is like top recommended by your students that you can really recall of?
Top software. It's
Right.
very,
So I guess
very
they have different preferences. Yeah.
yeah. They have different preferences. I mean, Prodigy is very in some ways it's very addictive and engaging. You see them do it very differently, because like there was one day a 7-year-old started. I think she was 7 years old at that time. She started having this. The screen will be like, what do you want to do today? And then it's this beautiful screen with like nature and stuff. It's called Memento or Moments or something like that. And it's
Right.
just a software to focus. And when she found out about that, and then like she was telling her friends, within 2 days everybody was using it. So that's not even a software which is learning. It's just a software for self-management.
Right.
Right? So
Okay.
you come up with a desktop. The first thing you will load up in your browser will be, what's your goal today? Welcome, whatever name and some nice words, and then. So what I'm trying to say is that it's not um, it's not necessarily just learning software. It's just tools that children will pick up, and then they will adapt and share with their friends. And this tool can be very, very wide. So.
Right. Okay. And for that case, right, let's talk about academic side of things, mathematics, English, BM, and communication skills, right? What's the percentage of it on the entire learning spectrum, right? In Acton Academy, would you put the percentage of all these kind of subjects are being learned by the students?
So we call them core skills, which is just reading, writing, and math. And additional language, if they choose to, it will just be 30% of their time. The rest of the time is spent on projects. Um, spent on play. I'm talking about elementary students.
Sure.
Uh,
Yeah.
so
Right. I guess let's talk about much more older students, in a way, probably 13 years old to 17 years old, right? So that's where a lot of the interesting projects starts to emerge from there. So so we talk about 30% is more towards core skills. So I guess the core skills are much more inclined towards them taking the self-initiative, using softwares to learn by themselves.
No, it's just more of like, okay, this is the base thing because it's you will need these skills, just reading, writing, and math, to some level programming for a lot of the things that you do. So this is at your own pace uh, but this because the way the adaptive software goes is that you can go at your own pace, which can be really fast for some of them, and then they can progress like 4 or 5 grades in a year. We've seen that happening before. Um, uh, I guess I'm trying to navigate. What's your question exactly? Is it what are they doing or
Right. So,
yeah
so we were talking about the 30% is much more on core skills. So,
yeah
so in a way, they will take their own charge, right? So,
yeah
do you predetermine that, hey, these are the core skills that you absolutely must improve upon during your entire year? Let's say, for example, 2020.
yeah?
Okay. So these are the core subjects.
I see. Okay, so what it is that we have a menu of options, and then they set their own goals based on the menu of options. That's pretty much it.
All right. And they do not have sort of like a formal test for all these core skills.
Uh, the we do this Iowa test once a year. It's not, it's like a test which is you come in and then we tell them that it's a test and then after that you have pizza. It's not a prepared test. Um, the Having said that, you've seen the just now the screen which has like all the different data analytics. Those data analytics shows in huge detail what the child is going through, what level of mastery the child has achieved. It's if you ask me, that is like way more detailed and accurate than a 90% on like math or whatever.
Right.
Like what does
Right.
90% on math really means? You know, because it's so to us it's that. But having said that, um, I would say that the shift. I mean, this is just the current Acting Academy design. The shift that we want to go to is that here's a bunch of real life problems, right? You need to in your life you need to work out your mortgage rate. What is the how much you need to reserve for your money? How much different problems that you face in life, and then you just compute it using a spreadsheet
Right.
and communicate that to people around you that you need to work with. Uh, I would say that will be more real life maths. I mean, that's where we are going towards rather
Yes.
than just based on this online software. Yeah.
Okay. And I guess moving on to the 70%, which are the projects that you just mentioned earlier, right? So what are would you be able to elaborate so for the 70% of the project? What does it entail? Probably paint a picture of what is it like for the students when they actually embark on projects.
Projects. So how it is that we have a learning arc, which is like sort of like 6 weeks, which ends with an exhibition. The exhibition is something as real life challenge as possible. So it's like you mentioned the children's business fair. So what it is that there's a fair at this date. There's 4 hours that you can sell to the public, and your goal is to make your customer happy and make a sale. That's end of that. And then within that 6 weeks, there are milestones that goes closer to the goal, and the milestones will include mini challenges, which is like how would you name your store? What products will appeal to your customer, and you do a test, and then you do surveys, and then like what is the unit economics, or what is the P&L, potential P&L of your product? How much do you need to buy, and so on, and it's so that's the sort of it's a narrative ending with a clear goal. So that's how the projects are organized.
Right. So 6 weeks. Each and every one of them the eagles will have to choose a project to embark on for the 6 weeks.
Yes and no. So some of it is synchronous, meaning that everybody is doing the same thing together.
Right.
For example, a business fair, the fair is only fun when there's like 50 people doing it together in a
Yes.
marketplace, right?
Exactly.
So
Right.
everybody is doing that. Of course, sometimes they are independent projects, but often for the energy to come together, it is synchronous to some degree. Of course,
Right.
within the synchronicity, there are individual variations, right? Like the children's business fair, somebody can be selling soap, somebody can be selling a game, because based on their interests. So,
Okay, so, then in a way, I would presume that the Eagles will be the one discussing on what projects that they will embark on at the start of the 6 weeks.
uh, the variation of projects, because it's part of the challenge, right? So let's say the children's business fair, using that example, the first 2 weeks is determine the product and determine the type of customer, right? So individual children will have different variation, and it can also be, are you doing it as an individual store, or you find a friend and work together? So there are like variations of just working, and then there's also like uh, how much risk do you want to take? Are you gonna uh, aim for like taking 500 ringgit of inventory, or just be more prudent and just have 200 ringgit of every inventory? So all those decisions will determine the experience of the project itself. Right. So what I'm trying to say is that they're doing the same project, no doubt, but the path that they're taking and the experience they have will be different because of the choices they make, and the uh, feedback loops that they have, which
Right.
is the real world, right? Because it's like,
Right.
yeah.
Right. And I guess to make it more concrete in a way, right? Would you be able to share with us what are some of the most interesting or unforgettable projects that you have encountered your Eagles taking part on in previous years?
Uh, do you want to have a specific age group?
Okay, let's talk about 13 years old and above.
13 years old. Earlier this year, we had a life and death. So what they did was that they looked into what does living a life mean, and what does death mean. So they literally wrote their eulogy. They had their funeral of each other in a campfire. They wrote their bucket list of what they want to achieve in life. They spoke to people in the uh, hospice and in anesthesia specialists. So they'll speak to medical officers who are dealing with death, right? So they have to deal with the critical decisions when it comes to, do you pull the plug, euthanasia, all those really topics that even like a 50-year-old were like, okay, I'm not comfortable exploring this. So that was quite intriguing, and they were open-minded about it,
Right.
and showing a lot of maturity as they navigate through those questions. So that's
I
something
see.
that's like, you wouldn't imagine a school
I see.
spend 6 weeks talking about death, right? So
Right. Right.
we went around that. So that's a more example.
So they spend 6 weeks to really dive into the dialogue of the about death as a whole, and probably to explore more on the conversation on and the stigma behind
Yeah.
uh right,
Yeah,
okay,
and
about
also like,
life itself. Right.
there's we have some of the families, they had a recent, their loved one recently passed away, so they shared what's their experience. It's quite heavy, but at the same time it's very thought provoking. So that's,
Right.
yeah.
Right. And by the end of the 6 weeks, right, what have you observed from the students coming out of this entire discovery of 6 weeks? And probably their peers as well when they actually shared amongst their peers on their projects and their findings.
I mean, their relationships is clearly much deeper. It's, you imagine you have like 10 friends going through this, uh, talking about this openly, sometimes cry together too. I mean, they form very deep relationships. The other one is they appreciate each other, appreciate life more. So those are the changes that we've seen. Um, and of course, it's like have a sense of like, okay, if if my let's say my parents, there'll come a day when my parents or a loved one die, what would I do? So those are very hard questions to face, right? So they there's a lot of maturity by facing those questions together as a group. So that's the changes we see. I mean, like basically they grow up, in a very deep, profound ways. So,
And I guess for students to take on such a how do you say, such a heavy topic, right? Or in a way, a very deep, profound topic. How does a guide, right, or a teacher in Acton Academy's case actually work together with them in terms of topics like this?
so the main trait that for this particular topic is we got to be very, very vulnerable. It's like we say, we are also scared, and also like share our journey with them. So like for example, during that time, I had a friend who passed away. So I shared the it was very heavy. I mean, I shared the Facebook page of that friend who passed away, and they saw that, and then we asked, like, what kind of life that he lived, and it was so heavy that they had to stop. So, but then it's that vulnerability of sharing, that made it that made it that was needed for it to work. And of course, there's some fun around it too, because they watch like movies, the bucket list with Morgan Freeman, and
Right.
what I can't remember
The
the
guy
other.
that
Yeah,
acted as Joker during the earlier Batman days, right? Jack
yeah, yeah,
Nicholson.
Jack Nicholson. And then watch the other one is what's the other movie name? Um, it's also a funny movie about death, So it's like I mean, funny in those heartwarming ways. So we also watch those kind of stuff, and that lightens the mood. But the reality is that we're just being human, right? That's the best we can do.
Right. Okay. And in a way, I see that sometimes in Acton Academy, right, you do actually invite people from outside, probably professionals that may be expert in their industry to share with students on their experiences as well. Would you be able to share with us on how it actually works out in Acton Academy?
Uh, well, it's pretty simple. I mean, like we have parents, we have friends, uh, we can Google search contacts, and we know what projects is coming up. So it's just reaching out and fixing a time. That's one. Second one is that we will share the biography with the Eagles, with the students, and they will have to come up with a list of questions before they can sit in the sharing session. So then what it is that they come in, and usually we try to put it in a relevant time. So meaning like for example, the uh, the hospice case was in the early part of it, because it was more about just the experience of dealing with death decisions. Whereas the uh, what do you call that, when we had topics about euthanasia and so on, it was then the anesthesia specialist was more relevant.
Right.
So of course
Okay.
we sort of like try. I mean, ideally we find the right time that this sharing session happens.
Okay.
But the
Right.
format is pretty simple. It's like they would just share like, this is what I was going through. and then it will be a Q&A, open Q&A. For the older group, for the younger ones, you need more visual. Like if you're a detective, like we have an inspector who came. No, I think not inspector. The what's the word? People working in moratoriums, like they have to what do you call that? Keep all the organs in place and stuff like that. So they actually took the real organs and brought it, and that was like really
Wow, in your face.
yeah, in the face, right? So for the younger ones, you need real visuals. I mean, older ones it helps too, but the
Okay.
younger ones you need visuals, and what we always say is that we make it relevant to the audience,
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And let them experience what your journey is. So that's the general advice.
Right. So I would like to take a segue, especially into the real world challenges that we're facing right now. Part of education, I believe, is always about preparing our children for the future, right? So that they can, with the knowledge or with the experience that they have gathered, right, they are able to digest it in a way, internalize it in a way, and to make it useful in the future, right? So that in future when they're adults, they are able to use these skills to the benefit of their own livelihood and possibly the livelihood of others, right? So when we talk about real world educating students or children to better prepare themselves for the real world challenges, right? How would you actually approach this for the students in Acton Academy?
I'm just trying to understand the question. It's like,
Right.
how do we
So
prepare in the
I
real
guess
world?
I guess the first question would be, okay, what skills do I need to learn in order for me to better equip myself for my future, or what's the best thing that I can learn right now, or that I can improve myself upon, so that I may have a good livelihood in future, so that I may be quote unquote be successful in future. How would you approach this question together with students?
I mean, the deepest question is the who am I question. So it's knowing this question of who am I, and if you can navigate that question, then skills and sort of like the path will make any sense at all. Otherwise, if it's coming from a authority, then that do we actually know how the future will unfold, right?
Right.
So, for example, like often I believe that we are, at least the public I see is that we're not asking the right question, right? The common theme will be like, oh, you need to learn Chinese, you need to learn, I don't know what other language, Chinese, maybe Arabic, you need to learn this and that, and this you need to X, X being language, music, whatever. I mean, the list is endless, right? You can, but is that the right question to ask, right?
Yeah.
So I would challenge that, right? Because I would challenge that, say that if you want to, so the reason people will say that the end goal of learning a lot of languages is that so you can speak to people from all over the world and be useful and resourceful, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is that if you have Google Translator, you have voice translator, then do you actually need that? Then the alternative is how can you? The question to ask is how can you be personable and adaptable in any global environment? That is not bounded by language. That is bounded by personality, attitude, and have an appreciation of culture around the world, which is different from language. So what I'm trying to say is that often that the language is an example of not asking the right question in terms of navigating what skills is needed.
Right. And so you mentioned about the who am I question, right? I guess even until this stage, a lot of adults, or even me myself as well, we are still in the process of discovering who we really are as a whole. For children, right? I guess as a guide, how does the process of discovery actually works together with the child? For example, in determining their own strengths and weaknesses, their interest, they could be more inclined towards music, or they may be naturally gifted in mathematics as a whole, right? How does the discovery process actually happens in Acton Academy for each and every one of the children? Because end of the day, children they're all different. They have their own strengths and weaknesses. I guess it's really the uncovering and understanding of themselves that, hey, I'm actually good in mathematics, so possibly I should actually take this path in discovering more about it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, well, like if I mentioned it earlier, it's like there's the recognizing a few things, right? Recognizing that when you are in flow, when you have a desire to do something, especially if it's hard, so those are, I mean, I believe trio have that feeling, right? It's like um, they might want to make their own Milo on their own, right? And then they work very hard on it to make sure that it goes in Milo. That's hard for a 2 3 to do that. And I mean, who knows? That might mean that there's a inclination to be in the kitchen. It can be like doing house chores or whatsoever. Um, the for I'm trying to put it more not so educated as a parent. It's like whenever we observe this spark that goes on, our role is encourage it and make it easier for them to have that resources, right? It's like uh, a child dances to music, us it's like, okay, you have a choice. Would you like to see that coco dancing, or this let them experience different things and widen that exposure. And of course the harder challenge is then when things get tough, can you pick yourself up when you fall down, right? So that is the which comes to the idea of hero's journey, which comes to the idea of uh, embracing the struggle. That will be the harder thing to adopt, because it's
Right.
finding a hobby is easy. What's hard is turning that hobby into something where you can practice it for thousands of hours and be really good at it. That journey is hard. So um, if you ask like what adults should do, is adults should do that themselves and be the
Right.
example themselves, and that's all we can do, right? Because I mean, no point we do not do that and tell children to do so. I mean, they will see through all the nonsense that we're talking about, right?
Right, right.
So,
And I guess maybe to share some experience from ours is that when we actually conducted so-called like a project, right, where students takes the lead, right,
yeah,
together as a group in running a project, for example. And what we found is that usually we'll take the role of of an observator, right? So we observe how the students behave during the entire process of the project. And what we found out is that there are a lot of traits that there will be demonstrated. For example, a student A, they might be a natural communicator. They might be able to have the ability to put things into a very good sense, right, for the team to understand.
yeah,
And most of the time, they do it so unconsciously that they are not aware of it.
yeah,
But it is until so-called like a feedback session by probably the guides or their teammates to let them know that, hey, do you know that you actually have a very good way of explaining things? You might be actually a very good explainer.
yeah,
And when they realize that, and
yeah,
they found out that, oh yeah, I never thought of that
yeah,
in that sense.
yeah,
And what
yeah,
and what we see is that it sort of like gets solidifying in them, that they know that this is one of their core skills, and
yeah,
and you can see them really thrive in a few projects to come, right? So
yeah.
I guess in a way, do you in a way observe and try to nudge them in a way to help them discover themselves more?
I would say that instead of the guide doing that, is to create an environment where they have peers giving feedback, and they like, let's say a public exhibition, let the public hold that mirror back and show that this is what you're good at,
Right.
rather than the authority. So the reason for that is that because we're so, we're quite in a close proximity, right? If we appear as a authority, then it's like I'm doing something, I want to look at whether I get validation.
Right. Right.
Whereas like if what I'm trying to say is that um, it is useful to have that, just that make that as a real world 360 feedback than just the educator alone. That's that's what we aim for. Does that make sense?
Okay. Right. Yeah. Okay. There's a comment over here that was mentioning, are you both twins? Very good morning. Yeah.
Or
Probably both
we
of us are wearing glasses.
oh,
Right.
that comment. Okay.
Yeah. We're not twins, but good, good, good to know that we may have some similarities in the facial looks from it. You see, these are some of the questions that I may not have thought of it from that perspective until someone points it out, right? And then it's like, oh yeah, it really makes sense on that term.
Yeah. The questions are more important than answers. So find the right
Right.
questions. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, if we were to zoom in terms of the real life scenario, right? So we talk about the skills to be able to present themselves better, to be able to know what value that you can really bring to the marketplace or to the world. In that sense, how in a way, how would you allow the students to arrive to that notion that, hey, probably this is something that I'm really passionate in, that I really want to bring forth to the world, and this is something that I might actually spend more time in developing and honing my skills in order for me to bring it up to the real world scenario. So, how would the entire process actually work out in allowing the students to discover that?
So for us, it's pretty straightforward. Just old-fashioned apprenticeships.
I see.
Yeah. So and it starts at 11, 12 years old, and
Okay.
they look for it themselves using a process which is kind of like a guerrilla strategy. Yeah.
Okay. Would you be able to elaborate more on that? Who do they apprentice? Who
So
do they find as mentor?
let's say they want to work with Jay, right? They want to work with you. Uh, Instead of like saying, send an email, say, I would like to work with you, to just say, okay, uh, I'm sending this email. Can I have a 5-minute phone call with you? I really admire what you do, and then research up stuff like that. Just a 5-minute phone call coming from a 12-year-old. Do you say yes or no? It's an easy
Probably.
yes,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Probably yes, right? And then during the 5-minute phone call, it'll be like, okay, can I meet you in person for 30 minutes or so? And, like just try to open the door wider and wider. And then in that 30-minute face to face, he'll sort of prepare it and sort of like ask, what's your journey and so on. And then with the final ask, it's like, I really want to know what you're doing more. Can I spend like half day with you or 2 hours with you to see, on the background when you're doing, podcast or whatever you're doing. And then through that, like being really helpful and doing all the preparation that's needed, then only ask for uh, 2-week work experience for like
Right.
80 hours, right? So it's just opening the doors and building the trust bit by bit. And it helps because they are 11, 12 years old too, because it has that intrigue in the society, right? So
Right.
that's how to do
Mhm.
it.
And I'm very interested in terms of the bazaar that you were mentioning about. So at the end of the 6 weeks, so they will have to come up with a product or a service, right, to be able to deliver it to the marketplace, right? So would you be able to share with us some of the most interesting products or services that the Eagles actually came up with by themselves, that you have seen that, oh, I never thought of that you can actually create a product or a service like this?
There's many. I mean, there's like uh, the most bizarre I've seen before is it's a dog that he took his pet dog and made it become a fortune teller.
Oh, okay.
That's the most bizarre I've seen. Um, uh, uh, Maybe the second most interesting ones would be uh, dog fortune teller. That was the first one that came out of it.
Let's talk about the dog fortune teller, right? How do they actually came up with the idea that, oh, I believe that a dog.
I have no idea.
All right.
I really have no idea, but it was so. There were many people queuing up for that booth for sure, and
Wow.
everybody. Have you checked out the dog fortune teller?
All right.
So,
Okay. And
uh,
did they do well in the it's like a 1 day bazaar or a few day bazaar, right?
I believe that booth was breaking it. Uh,
Wow.
I've seen like origami. I mean, like bespoke origami. That was another immediate one I can think of. That's one of our students. Um, but yeah, the
Okay.
dog was the one that was so bizarre.
Right. And did you ask them what's your marketing strategy and why do you feel that a lot of people will be queuing up for that kind of service? What was
There
the
was such a long queue, I couldn't even engage them. So,
wow?
so I wanted to, of course, ask more, but it was such a long queue, and it's like, so everyone was talking about it. So yeah,
Right,
yeah.
right. Okay, and yeah, so in which case, right? Of all the ventures that they actually do, right? Would you be able to share with us what's the most profitable one that you have actually seen? What topic or what service or products did they actually bring up that actually use the best results?
Uh, for our children's business fair, the most profit, most revenue I seen was like just under 3,000 ringgit for
Okay, in a
4 hours.
day, right? In
Yeah,
a
yeah, four
day.
hours. Yeah, yeah. I mean, half day. It's not even full day. It's just 4 hours. Is it 4
Wow.
hours? 12:30 to. Oh, yeah, yeah. Just 3.5 hours. It's
Okay.
2,000.
Right.
I think 2,800 ringgit. Yeah, they were selling like decoratives, like very attractive decoratives,
Right.
um, and reasonable price. I mean, like reasonable meaning that they're not 1 ringgit stuff. They're like 10 to 15 ringgit stuff. Like
Okay.
really a lot of decoration stuff, and a lot of people were buying it for as gifts and stuff like that.
Right. Yeah, and I would presume that the preparation that leads towards that bazaar, it's all done 100% by themselves. They have to discover the marketing plan, how the positioning the product, the advertisement, the core story structure, the pricing point, and everything.
I mean, of course, it's like for us, we make sure our egos do that. For the public participants, the one we think we can control is that when they were selling in the booth, the parents are always like away or just behind the scenes. So that's, I mean, what happened behind the scenes, we assume that we assume the best that that's what's happening, but it might not be the case. But yeah.
Right. And by the way, I'm just very intrigued with the dog with the fortune teller
Yeah.
concept, right? Is the prediction or the fortune telling dog accurate in a way? What do they tell about?
I don't know. It did. What was really funny is that he did have a sign which says that um, if you're not happy with the prediction or the fortune telling, you might as well go home with a cat or something like that. It's some cat joke. I mean, it was just it was making fun of a cat. Like dog lovers
Right.
don't love cat, but it
Okay. Right.
yeah, it was really funny. I mean, I have friends who tried it. I mean, they say it's just very weird. Like a dog just choose pet, and it just and then the
Oh,
children get money.
right.
Yeah,
It would
of
be
course,
funny if you have a picture that we can show to everyone. That would be very cool. And how old is the kid that actually came up with this
8 years
concept?
old. I mean, there's a ritual behind it so that it really feels like a business. But then when you go in, it's a dog that they will sort of like a smart dog who will choose make some choice. Oh,
Right.
yeah. And of course, it's like there's some marketing gimmick. I don't know what it is, but it's like it drew a lot of crowd. I mean,
Right.
so
Right.
yeah.
He's probably the next marketing genius in the making, knowing that something.
Having said that, the most successful children's business fair participant in the world is this Michaela Umer. She's like her business is like 10 plus $1 million. Yeah, she sells lemonade, but the with a cause which is to save the bees. So that's you'll be surprised that businesses can emerge. Like there's at least like few Shark Tank cases coming from the children's business fair. I mean, this is in US, not here.
Right. And I guess it might not make sense for us and as an adult, but when we look at brands like Supreme, they can actually sell like bricks, right, for enormous amount of money, just a brick with a brand on top of it. So it really doesn't make sense, but sometimes children get it. They might actually perform better. But if we are allowing them to actually experiment on that will be something amazing as well,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. I mean, that this the whole idea of having that joy in that, doing the challenge, owning that learning experience. It's you imagine every single child. by the time they're 12 years old, they have done at least 5 or 6 businesses, right? I mean, what kind of world would that be?
Right.
That's pretty amazing, right? I mean, I imagine it will be a much better world than that we can't even imagine how that world will be. I mean, it would be pretty amazing if every child by 12 years old they have set up at least 5 businesses.
Right. Yeah. And I was doing some reading earlier, is that a lot of the so-called successful entrepreneurs during their younger years, they are sort of like an explorer of different business venture, including, for example, like Warren Buffett. He used to sell papers. Li Ka-shing, he used to sell papers as well in the plastic plant business. And I guess it's sort of like the spirit of allowing them to experiment, to fail or succeed, learn from it, and to continue on the process from that really makes the change for them. And yeah, and one of the best experiences that we can give them is to give them that experience in exploring the different options out there, right? And for child in Acton Academy, right, towards the entire process of it, probably they will be encouraged to take on more challenges and different experiences from there.
Yeah, I mean, the end of it is that they step out in the real world and be an independent, purposeful person. That's pretty much it, right? And then that's and pursue their deeper calling and being able to keep, living a meaningful life. That's the ultimate goal of our the mission of Acton Academy.
Right. Okay. Okay. There's one topic during the education summit that I'm very intrigued in, which is the so-called the measuring of mastery. Right. So they have to earn badges to prove that they have mastered the new skills. So would you be able to sort of like give us a very a background or the concept of the badge system that you actually utilize in Acton Academy?
So we have 4 questions that measure excellence. So that's in things which are subjective judgment, things which are objective judgment, which is like Khan Academy measuring math, whether you can do it or not. That's covered using software, and so I'm not talking about that. So mastery is covered in 2 ways, right? Objective and subjective. Subjective will be a piece of art and so on. So in this case, so this one is more of a batch plan for elementary. So for example, math, that's distinct already. So I'm talking about more of, let's say, you would take Quest, for example, the blue one. So Quest, the question we'll ask is, if it's your first time, is this your best work? So long you put in the so-called best efforts, like your friends say that, you really work hard for it, and then that's the badge is awarded, kind of straightforward. Of course, then the second time is it better than the first time, or is it better than the last time, right? So like the second time you submit a piece of work, you look at the first one, is it better? Yes, and that's it. If it's not, then it's like you do it again, such that it's better than the last one. Right. And then obviously, you will keep progressing, and then you will sort of reach a plateau, right? Then it comes to the third question, which is, is it worthy of exhibition, or worthy to be in public, shared in the public, and which is actually no. The third question is it how does it compare with a master piece of work, right? So if you are writing, then you want to compare with Ernest Hemingway. If you are drawing something, that depending what you're drawing, you want to compare with a master, you can find online, and then see where you can improve further. So that's the third one. And then the fourth question, which is it worthy of public exhibition, or going for open competition, meaning that you're going in the real world, and that can be, if you're doing work, real life work. I mean, I'm talking about 12, 13 years old. You aim for paid work, right? It's like if, you subscribe to Upwork or something where you gotta prove that somebody is willing to pay you for your work. So that's those stages, those 4 questions that determines mastery in a subjective sense.
Right. Would you say it's not so much on what is being presented, but it's more of the students being able to justify and give a reasonable explanation for their work.
I
Like
would
for
say
example,
early
for
days,
example, yeah,
yeah, the first two, like the first two questions is like, is this your best work in the beginning stage, and is it better than the last one? There is some student justification, but third one, which is compared to a master, and fourth one, open competition and exhibition, that is, it's not a student thing, right? It's a real public
right,
opinion that
right.
matters. Yeah.
Right. Because I'm referring back to the dogs that the fortune telling dog.
Yeah.
So yeah, that kid might be sort of like a genius that takes a huge bold move, right? Which is very hard to be explained to someone like a commoner like us. Hey, how will this work? A normal teacher would brush it off as like oh, that's a dumb concept or something like that.
I
But
mean,
to them, they might actually see some insight, right? Yeah.
if you know, $1,000, every customer walk up, have something to share and tell their friends. I mean, like, that's as good business as you can get, right? And his cost is like zero because it's just a dog.
Yeah.
He's not doing this. So,
Yeah.
uh, any
He
measure of
probably has
business,
to feed the dog though, with some cookies or bones.
you
That,
would have
that's
paid the dog anyways, right? So, because the relationship is there, but that's not me to judge. But in any measure of business, profit, customer satisfaction, ingenuity of the idea, I would say that's
yes,
perfect
right,
score, right? And who
right,
judges
right.
that? The customer who pays money.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Right. Yeah, and so-called like the badge concept, right? I guess a lot of teachers and even me myself, we're trying to actually perfect the system to allow them to have sort of like a motivation structure. I guess traditionally, right, human brains are sort of like wired towards achieving greatness. It's sort of like you climbing the mountain, and every step of the way you're leading higher and nearer, closer
Yeah.
towards your goal. You conquer this mountain, that mountain. So in a way, when you actually plan the batch system or sort of like a motivational way to allow them to have sort of like milestones, right, in their
Yeah.
journey, right? Or what have you discovered that really works well that allows the kid to really stick on to the long journey ahead? Uh, like what you say, the daily habits, the grinding, day in and day out. That's sort of like the most important habits that we can give them to develop. So, what are sort of like the most effective ways that you have really found out that really works with kids?
So this image that you shared, I mean, this slide that you shared is a very good example. So it has an element of it being visual and being relevant to you in front. So what I'm trying to say is that visual because you can see from level 1 to 5, meaning that you can see your broader journey together. Like you can see your destination, you can see the mountain, right? And then you have this level thing with milestone and challenge, which is sort of like what you do daily or a shorter period of time, which
Right.
allows you to have visible idea of what is it that you need to do. Because the mountain is like, oh, if I just look at the mountain, it's just too overwhelming. But if we break it
Mm.
down, it's like, okay, by end of to this, before my lunchtime, I reach there, which is reasonable and so on. And then I have a mini celebration. I have my hot chocolate at
Right.
that place at noon, like then you can pace yourself over that long journey.
Right.
So here, I believe that there's this 4 minutes to longer term. So what it is that I believe that the slide before that is about this child who's being a gargoyle and just sitting down for 4 minutes. I want to be a gargoyle. So it's coming back to that visual of like what I can see, which is for this child is 4 minutes, to the longer term, which is my path ahead, which is life, right?
Right.
So and that's so back to answer your question is in summaries is uh, a good batch system is one which is visual, both long term, and you know what to do within a short period of time. So
Right.
that would be a good design. And of course, it has to be real life relevant and something that where the child wants to engage with.
And does this actually work with older students as well? Probably those who are 15 years old, 17 years old, and above. Does that concept actually require some form of fine tuning to allow them to better relate towards their goal?
Yes, only if they design their batch plan.
Right.
Because they are at the maturity where they can navigate a bit more, right? And then it's like games, you can't play too much games. What it is something that's much deeper and real life for them. And then if it's something that they own it and design, then it works better. But having said that, for that to work, is they need quite a lot of real life exposure before, like to do that. So hence, it's like we said, 11, 12 years old, do apprenticeship. By 12 years old, you have 5 businesses. So all those things will give the context of what would you want in your batch plan. But otherwise, it's like if all you've done is academic study, it's a bit hard to have that idea of batch. It's like, oh, I'm just doing this, and what does it mean? So
Right. I guess as they grow older, they would be allowed to create their own batch system, sort of like their own journey ahead as well. I guess it's relevant for adults as well, because we ourselves we have to set our own benchmark, our own goals, mini goals, big goals, and think in terms of that. It's good that it allows them to have much more structure and focus in their journey ahead as well, right? Okay, so I guess from that term, right, I would like to zoom in to another dimension on towards this, right? How does a parent for the Eagles in Acton Academy actually play a role in their learning environment? Would you be able to share with us more on towards that, the involvement of parents?
that's something that we are at least like I admit I'm struggling with. An ideal Acton parent will be someone who you have a clear contract with your child too. So meaning that you trust the child, trust them in learning. You trust that they have their own space of making mistakes and stuff, right? Because it's very easy to like even you have a 3-4 year old, it's like be careful, But what you can do is just if the child is navigating and like finding his sense, you just keep quiet and trust them, right? Trust the process of falling down is part of learning how to walk.
Right.
That kind of trust. And so that's one element of it. And then the second one is that the best thing you can do is not so much of telling them what to do, is being on a hero's journey yourself, being resilient, picking up yourself during the times when you're struggling, sharing that experience with them so to connect them, right? To connect with them, like you are on this journey too, that you're human. So I would say that those are the way that parents can support. And of course, um, allow the exposure to be broadened as much as you can. I mean, based on the resources that you have, right? It's like if a child is so obsessed with horse riding, you plan your next trip to Mongolia to horse ride for two weeks. I mean, provided resources allow, right?
Right.
Yeah. So it's you do what you can in terms of exposure to resources, but the more important is that the character traits of you on your own journey will be the best guide to your child, and of course that connection. Or you've heard of this Khalil Gibran's poem, like your children on children, your children is not your children; they are life longing for itself.
Right.
So, and then it ends with like, the child is like an arrow who wants to go far, but it needs a bow which is very stable. So it's like being a stable bow, being that bow and arrow kind of bow, being that anchor that the child can lean on, and also the anchor also means that you're the example, the best you can be. So I would say that will be
Right. Yeah,
example.
because what I was observing is that from Acton Academy, it's very inquisitive. So the guide do not give them the answer all the way, allowing them to discover themselves. But when it comes to family, right? I guess I guess a few days ago we were having some basketball match with a few friends, and I was observing a few family members, a mom and dad, and together with their children when they're playing basketball, right? And what I was observing is that the parents, so-called like a very caring parent, right? They would give them instruction, hey, you should do this, hey, you should not do this. And towards the entire half an hour, it's instructions after instructions after instructions. And the kid, when I was observing the facial expressions, is very tense in a way. very weary, hoping for the next instruction to give them comfort for the moving towards the next step. It's sometimes kind of hard for parents to take off of the protective role for children. So how do you actually balance that when they actually come back from Activ Academy, whereby they make their own decisions, and back to the family, whereby the parents may not be able to adapt towards that philosophy and approach as well? Because end of the day, parents is 50%, and teachers over in school is 50% as well. It plays equal role and equal importance in the child's development as well.
So maybe I have this, probably go to slide 50. There's a chart, hero versus victim. Slide 50. I'm not sure. I hope you can zoom in to the two triangles.
Okay. Hold on just a minute. Page 50.
Yeah, it's a question about how you manage failure by the last.
Okay. Oh God.
Yeah. So. While you're looking for it, I'll describe a bit more. It's like what it is that it's a triangle. It's called a bottom triangle. It's called a dreaded drama triangle, and the top is the opposite of it. So the dreaded drama triangle is anxiety-based, problem-focused, and bottom of it is a victim, and the victim is the conditions being a victim is that there's a prosecutor and there's a rescuer, and then they're in this dance. So prosecutor will be like, why didn't you do this? Why? And then rescuer will be like, don't worry, I'll take care of you, and the victim will stay as the victim, meaning that, oh, why, so that's this triangle. I'm not sure whether you can zoom in to see, so that we just look at that. Yeah. So,
right.
yeah. So that's great. So that being in that situation, and we don't need to even look at children, parent. I mean, like when we are new parents, if our parent-in-law or parents are like, why didn't you do this? Why? I mean, like you become like this victim, or why I'm so bad as a parent. Like it's so it's to kind of be aware about this situation that we put ourselves in, or we put other people in. Either a role as a prosecutor or rescuer. Rescuer meaning like, okay, this is going to be hard. Let me fix it for you. And every time let me fix it for you, and in the end, it's like, what do you learn? And then being a victim is like, I'm stuck. I'm not good at this. I'm, that kind of mindset. So to overcome that is you to ask, like, if we're being prosecuting, it's like, why didn't you do this? Is the mirror role of that would be, can you be challenger? Meaning that, okay, no, it's like, okay, I see that you're trying to score, but you miss the shot. I challenge you to practice like 100 shots. Like you can show a video of Michael Jordan practicing and miss like 100 shots this evening. I'll be here to be here for you, and as you try to hit those 100 shots. So that's the challenger role, right? The coach, so rescuer will be like, don't worry, if you can't get that, like it's like kind of like trying to rescue the situation. The coach will be more of like, okay, what are the two things you want to improve on? Like let's say for the basketball case, you'll be having the right way of throwing, right? And it's okay, let's practice that throwing. And then when you go into the court, you are then you say that you are a hero with this freedom to, based on the challenges that you have and the coaching that you receive, to perform to your best passion, and then you evaluate again. So it's that having that trusting, trusting that space to allow the children to be that. So it ends back to trusting the child, trusting the process. So it still points down to those. But it's hard because it requires quite a bit of mindful judgment. I'm sure that parents do not can
Exactly. Yeah.
doing that. So
Yeah, it's just that maybe they're brought up in that way as well. So it sort of like comes naturally in the approach that they deal with it as well, right? So yeah, I guess a lot of teachers, we were discussing with a lot of educators as well, that the involvement of parents require a lot of patience and communications as well on how the education approach can be seamlessly integrated between in-house education and when they actually come to the school by itself, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay. And in Acton Academy, how involved are parents in the learning process in Acton Academy? And in which way are they actually involved in that?
It really depends. There's no um, what we do ask is that each family has a family plan. The family plan is about, like, imagine the organization mission, objective, vision, and some goals that they put together. So we do require family.
Right.
Other than
Right.
that, it's their hero journey, and we have workshops and to pick up that. But otherwise, it's parents are actually busy people.
Right. Right.
Much as we expect them to do this and that, that um, um, we can't expect too much. Yeah, so long they are believing in the the child, and they have to juggle what life for them, right?
Right. Mm-hmm. I guess they always say that a great educator, a lot of times they are also a great family counselor as well. Meaning to say that there are a lot of examples whereby a great teachers, right, when they're actually faced with a problematic student, they might be causing trouble in school. They would dig in deep, right, on where they actually develop this type of traits and such, and it's always stemmed towards the family, and they would actually have to go into the understanding of the upbringing, how it actually works from there, and eventually becomes like a family counselor in that end, and to solve the root cause of the issue in the family approach as well. So I guess I guess on the brighter side as well, it's also for the educator to really determine the ability, the strengths and weaknesses of a student, and to be able to communicate with the parents as well. Let's say, for example, the child, when we give an example that the child may be able to articulate something very well, or they might be very musically talented, and they actually communicate with the parents as well. Hey, do you know that your child actually has like perfect pitch in that way? They might be actually very musically inclined. So you could possibly lead them on towards that direction from that end as well. Yeah. So does that communication actually take place whereby you share insights about the children or the eagle with their parents together as well, to bring in the conversation and to bring in more understandings between the parents and the kid?
So we, instead of us being the authority sharing that, which leads to a need for validation, right? What we do is that we bring the real world feedback to the child that's transparent to the parent. So that comes into three views here. It comes in apprenticeship references, exhibition feedback, tools that assess personality and different traits. It's the tool that is giving the feedback.
Right. Mm-hmm.
My opinion and so on. Once I start doing that, the role of a guide is affected.
Right.
So that can be kind of like weird role for educators. We stand by them as a guide to be the authority that guides us. So that's why we.
Right.
But don't get me wrong. we are still back, but I think mirror, and okay, I think that A, B, C.
Right. And I guess it's very important for the communication, the role of the teacher as well. I guess it has to be done very skillfully, without much intrusion, for that end to happen as well. I guess we have a few more minutes. Yeah.
Sure that I want to make a point so that we're not family counseling.
Yeah, exactly.
What goes behind the family and it's way more complicated than our can
right, exactly. Yeah, right. Okay, so I guess there's a few minutes more. So if those of you who are watching, if you have any questions, please do comment down below. We will sure to have that conversation together with Jia Hong as well. Before that, just want to find out, Jia Hong, for Acton Academy, what's in it? What's the plan ahead for the future? Coming forth from COVID emerging for the next few years, are there any plans ahead for Acton in terms of your future plannings? Would you be able to share some insights on that as well?
Well, it's our role is to serve the mission, so we could be doing that day in, day out. That's our focus.
Okay. And currently, right now, we didn't actually speak about this. Is that how many students are there currently in Acton Academy?
We are 30 plus. We did lose quite a bit of students during COVID.
Right.
Most international they went back to their own home.
Right. I presume that schools students are back in Acton Academy, back in school already. But during the COVID time, right, would you be able to share with us how was the process like during the transition when internet access is the only way to communicate with the students?
Yeah, it's because they're self-paced, you pay a lot more online tools. The transition was very easy. Yeah. So that was straightforward. In terms of learning, it means their friends and friends.
Right. But however, the learning still continues, whereby they go on with their
just like automatic. It was straightforward. Like we didn't struggle with like Activ whatsoever. And it wasn't us. It was all the academic, that smooth transition. Yeah.
Okay. I guess from that end, time's running short. So I guess a couple more questions from my side as well. For you yourself, as a parent yourself, right? In envisioning education for your very own children, right? What's the best education that you feel that you can actually provide for your very own children, if there may be a perfect education out there, from your opinion?
I mean, if I can live a deeply meaningful life, I mean, they will and connect with that, in the most openly way possible. I believe everything will have its own path. Yeah.
And I guess the final part is that any final conclusions with regards to teachers that will be watching and might be watching later on in this EduChat series?
Well, if you want to give whole idea a try, spend 45 minutes with a child or anybody below 10 years old, not answering any questions, just ask questions and see what you like. So when share your experience and
Okay. So in a way, ask more questions and allow them to discover themselves more, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I guess with that, thank you, Jia Hong, so much again for coming on to this EduChat series. So we wish you all the best and good luck in the future as well. We hope definitely to have you on board as well for more of your sharing sessions. And for those of you watching and will be watching later as well, Jia Hong actually did a very comprehensive presentation in the structure of the hero's learning journey, right? You can actually check it out in the Edu Summit Facebook group with all the slides, that we have actually shown earlier. All of the slides, you can actually get it in the EduChat, Edu Summit Facebook group as well, right? Okay. So, right, Jia Hong, thank you so much again. So, have a great weekend. And thank you so much again for joining in.
It's a pleasure to be here. Okay, thanks.
All right, take care. All right,
Okay,
leave you
okay.
back with your family then.
Yeah,
Take
I
care.
will play with my children.
All right.
So my weekend plan. All right.
All right, take care. See you, Jia Hong.
Okay, bye.
All right, so there was Jia Hong Tan from Acton Academy, Kuala Lumpur. So for those of you who are wanting to find out more about Acton Academy as well as his presentation, please do log on onto the Education Summit Facebook group, right? All of the presentation slides as well as some of the videos from Acton Academy you can actually get hold of in the Facebook group as well, right? So thank you once again, everyone, for joining in into this series of Education Summit. So in next week, just a very quick teaser that we will be having Dr. Sharon Wilson. Dr. Sharon Wilson has actually shared also in the Education Summit 2020. So next week will be a very interesting education chat series, right? Whereby because the topic that she'll be sharing, it's more on towards the international collaboration between teachers. And she actually had an award-winning initiative, right, where they actually have uh, students from Malaysia, as well as students, university students from the US as well, to have a cross collaboration online, right? And when during her sharing session in the Education Summit, it actually sparked sort of like a collaboration between teachers in the Education Summit as well. So we will actually be featuring Dr. Sharon as well as her partner over in US as well. So you'll be a live conference together with those teachers and lecturers from the US, as well as we will be having some sharing sessions by some of the teachers, right, that actually took the effort to bring this international collaboration into their school as well. So it'll be a very interesting discussion next week in the Education Chat series. So please be sure to tune in as well if you would like to find out more on how you can collaborate with teachers from different countries, right, and from different backgrounds to enhance the learning experience for your children as well. Because we know that some countries are still under COVID, still under lockdown. So everyone is tuning on towards online education and online engagement. So this is a perfect timing for educators, schools, and students as well to take this opportunity to connect with other people out of your countries and hopefully to be able to spark an interesting education approach as well, right? So please be sure to tune in next week in the EduChat series that we will be announcing in very soon. All right. So I guess from that end, a final few announcement from here. We do actually have our Malaysia Education Summit Facebook page, right? So please, if you love what we are currently doing over here, please do give us a like on our Malaysia Education Summit Facebook page, as well as the YouTube channel that we actually have that we will be updating with all of the newest videos on our sharing sessions soon, right? As well as the EduChat series that you are tuning in right now as well. So every Saturday, we will be speaking to one educator from their very own education disciplines, speaking about education and having much more in-depth conversation on that as well. All right. So I guess with that, thank you so much, everyone, for watching and tuning in onto this EduChat series. So if you have any further questions, please do comment down below. We'll be sure to address it as well. And if you have any questions, right, with regards to any of our activities, please do not hesitate to email us at hello.edusummit@gmail.com. Right. I guess with that, thank you so much, everyone, for joining in. That's all for today. I would sign off for now, and I hope that all of you would have a splendid weekend. And I will see you next week on EduChat series. Take care, everyone.